Good morning, friends. This is Kerry Green. We are back for the Morning Mindset edition of the Live, Build, Change podcast. And this is really like the third in a series where we're talking about why it is so important that God displays His glory to human beings. And what is God's glory? Well, it's the fullness of His incredibleness, if we can say it that way. It's a clear revelation of His majesty, His amazingness, His so much beyond usness, if I can say it that way. I mean, it's hard to even describe what the glory of God is. But it's the most valuable thing human beings can receive, is a clear perception of God's glory, because when we see how amazing He is, it transforms the way we look at ourselves, the way we look at life, the way we look at what He has done for us and what He is doing in us. It really transforms everything to see it. And we were looking at John chapter 11 yesterday, in this situation where Jesus was told that his good friend Lazarus was sick, very sick, and Jesus does not go to him. In fact, he waits for 2 more days when he hears. And there is a causal relationship there. It says, so when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. It's because he knew that Lazarus was so sick, he waited. And he said to his disciples after that, let's go back. And so they do. And Jesus gets there. And, well, actually, let's stop for a second. On the way there, his disciples are talking with him about the danger that's ahead, because Jesus' life was threatened before when he was in that area. And he says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. And his disciples said, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better. Makes sense, right? But Jesus was speaking of his death. But his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. Just he had fallen asleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Let us go to him. What is it that these disciples needed to see? What is it that Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, needed to see? What is it that all the mourners who had gathered needed to see? They needed to see something bigger than themselves. They needed to see that there are things greater than death. There are things more important than the suffering that we endure, like 9/11 in the United States, like natural disasters. There are things more important. And so Jesus goes and he meets them there. He meets Mary and Martha, and they come out and they say, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's Martha's words. And Jesus says, your brother will rise again. And she says, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. So she's thinking way in the future. And Jesus says to her, no, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? You see, Jesus is pointing out to her, there's a greater glory than you've seen, Martha. There's a greater majesty than you're aware of. And I came back after Lazarus died to show you that glory, to demonstrate it to you. And so he goes to the tomb. And you can see what's coming. He raises Lazarus from the dead. And he does so to show his glory. Now, why is it so important that Jesus show his glory? It's so important that he allowed someone to die. I mean, this was real death. This was real suffering that he went through, that his sisters went through. This is a real sorrow. I mean, Jesus even weeps here in verse 35 when he gets to the tomb. Why is it so important for Jesus to display his glory? It's because when we see his glory, everything changes for us. Tomorrow we're going to wrap this up in talking more about what it means to us to see the glory of God. So join me again tomorrow on the Morning Mindset edition of the Live, Build, Change podcast.